Welcoming everyone as you enter the room. We are still at it, our second seminar of our first day of Seminar 2020. Continued prayers for internet and all the tech platforms we're using to cooperate with us. We know that those things sometimes act a little funny, but we will do our best to use this platform to convey a informative and insightful webinar on how to build a business plan. So this is foundational for those of us who are on the social entrepreneurship track, whether you're in idea phase, your early stages, maybe you can do some rethinking about your plan. This is a great playground to be able to explore, to be able to really take advantage of such a skilled, bright presenter and Dr. Jennifer Madden, who I've had the opportunity to get to know over the last year. That's her right there. You've read her bio. You've seen all that she's doing in the world. I'm not going to take time to do that. If she wants to speak more about how great she is, she's more than welcome. But I'm going to give her the mic to be able to lead us in our seminar on how to build a business plan.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you. I am going to share my screen. And so thank you so much. I'm incredibly excited to be here. I love this work. I do have a little bit of a share, so bear with me. I'll give you a little bit of an overview. Our agenda for today, we're going to jump right in because my Achilles heel, my weakness is that I'm always trying to do too much. And so I know I got too much stuff in these slides right here, but all of it is incredibly important. So I just want to touch on it so that at least you'll, I can plant the seed and then you can grow the crop that needs to, produce the yield for you so you to be able to thrive in your business venture. So I'm going to touch on some things that I think are incredibly important for you. And then I put a bunch of resources together for you to have. So you'll have all that good information. You have my contact information. So we're going to make it safe. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick slide about me, and then I want to take you right into the different types of business plans. And I'm going to hit on what I think are the key components of a traditional business plan, a lean business plan, and then a business plan that has sort of this notion of social impact. And what are some like hot buttons that you need to be aware of? And then I also want to put some things in your toolbox. So I always like to deliver a workshop, a training, a class that it's like rapid application, because the way that you learn how to use a tool is that you use a tool. So I'm going to expose you to the tool and to some research sources, and then I'm going to allow you to go and get further immersed in those tools and resources as you're ready and as they interest you. So I have a couple on the screen that I'm going to talk through quickly that I think will be useful. So we got a lot to do in an hour, so I'm gonna jump right in. Also, throughout the slides, if you see the green star, that's a concept I want you to pay a little closer attention to. That's one of the things I want you to take with you or to be mindful or thoughtful about. All right, so quickly, I am Dr. Jennifer Madden. I recently took a new position as Dean of the School of Business and Professor of Management at Linfield University. You can see my empty bookshelves. I just got the truck, just came yesterday, but I haven't had time to unpack it yet. So next time I'll be looking fully professorous. I'm also the president of Leverage Point Development, and that is a boutique consulting company. And boutique is fancy for just me. And I do a lot of work around strategy, resource development. I love going after those like big, audacious federal grants because that's where you get the real money. And I love having an impact. I love job creation work. I love micro enterprises. This is how you have impact and make a difference in the world. This is my sweet spot. A lot of school loan debt, as you can see. Couple of credentials that I think are just help to keep me razor sharp. Mostly the ESCI certification. You all have high levels of emotional and social intelligence. Make sure you lean into those skill sets. We'll say that for another workshop. And gifts, my gifts. I'm a design thinker, a strategist, a collaboration maker. and I bring ideas to fruition. That's my sweet spot. And just sort of like the quick photo montage, that in the top, this is where I did, I went to business school. And so I took one for the team, because as a person with a history of urban economic development and a love for that, business school is not quite the place where they welcome you with open arms around situations in the community, but it's a good skill set in business schools. So yes, you should do it. The second photo of my husband Khalil and I were in Italy. I was doing my doctoral program. This is when I knew my research was on to something. And so it was super important to be there and to see and see the excitement around my work, and know that that the work that I was building could have the potential to have substantial impact. And again, this is again, my husband and I, we are in Egypt, and the story, you should ask me one time of the story of how we got to Egypt. But the important piece for me, and why I love this picture, is that Egypt always reminds me that it is important to ask good questions. So be thoughtful about the questions that you ask so that you can get to where it is that you want to be. Be thoughtful about the questions so that you're getting the right information that you need to push your way forward. And so, and I say this is a good question because we got to Egypt because my dad had been retired for some time, and I asked him if he wanted to take a trip. See, that was a terrible question. I should have said, Dad, do you want to go to Jamaica? But instead I said, Dad, you want to take a trip? And he was like, I always wanted to go see the pyramids. I was like, the pyramids, like in Vegas, the pyramids? No, Egypt. So I wrote the check, so I had to figure out how to cash it. And then now my dad thinks he's supposed to travel with us everywhere. So this is us in Lesotho. This is the country that is completely surrounded by South Africa. It's what they based Wakanda off of. So I told him, like, which of your other kids has ever taken you to Wakanda? That would be me. So I'm like rock star child. All right, on to it. So I want you to dive into this work and seeing yourselves as taking on this entrepreneurial imperative. You being an entrepreneur is the most important thing that you can be. And if you take on that mindset, it really will help fuel you through the difficulties of the work. Because entrepreneurship is difficult, but very important work. But you need the right tools in your toolbox to help make it better. And so if you take on this notion of this entrepreneurial imperative, it's more than just being encouraged about starting a new business. It's really about your mindset. It's really about your willingness to see opportunities, to take risks. It's really your willingness to tolerate failure, because you learn something from that failure, failing fast, knowing that it's time to like redesign or create a workaround, that you're thinking creatively about how you can turn something, nothing into something impactful. It's being tenacious and, willing to push until you can bring an idea to fruition. That is the entrepreneurial imperative. And that is what I want you to be incredibly excited about when you do your work. It is difficult work, but like my grandfather would always say, anything in life worth having takes work. So I want to first open you up to just a couple of websites. Now, I know the session is being recorded. We have an hour, so I'm just trying to get in as much as I can. So forgive me if you feel like the pace is too fast. You will have all of the resources. They've already been put in your Blackboard, but I want to be able to walk you through them so that you can be able to access them. So the first thing that I put in your deck are really 3 critical websites that you can go to and get all sorts of free. I'm all about free tools. All sorts of free resources that can help you in your work. The first one is smallbusinesssolver.com. This is a free website. You have to log in to give them your email address, but then you have access to all of these tools. Like, there is no reason for you to be reinventing the wheel as you do your work. There are so many resources available, and build from a template, build from a guide so that you don't have to, struggle and constantly try and see what it is that you need to do. So the Small Business Solver is essentially a website with tons of tools and assessments and insight and guides that you can have at your fingertips for whatever your business is. The other piece especially relevant for this course, is bplans.com. Now, bplans.com, got to be careful because they want you to buy something, but you don't have to. You could just go to bplans.com, and it'll have like a little button on the right hand side that says, you know, look at sample business plans. And you can look at those sample business, and then you have this full menu of all these different types of businesses that you can look at these sample business plans for. And what you'll begin to see and recognize is the patterning that happens. And I have the sort of table of contents for those business plans. But here for you is a full example of a written business plan. Now, mind you, they'll try and get you to buy the software, and they're like, oh, you just put in a couple of keywords and we'll help you narrate the business plan. But you don't need to do that. You can get the free version and write up your own narrative that tailors your own business. So the free examples are there. And just remember, the example is there to do just that, provide you an example, some insight. It doesn't need to be exact. It just gives you some direction. So don't let the business plan narrow you. You know, it's just an example and a guide. As a college professor, it happens all the time. Whenever I give students examples, they think that their job is to mimic something exactly. Think of these tools as inspirational to help you, you know, chart a pathway to the business plan that you need, to the tools that you need, and use these things as guides to help give you additional insight on what you need to do. And then the other piece was super interesting. The SBA has some resources available. So the SBA Business Guide is another neat resource that you can use to help you in your work. So take advantage of these free tools on these websites so that you can be better at your work. Okay. But I do want to walk through this, what I'm calling the anatomy of a business plan. And so these are the key components in nearly every business plan. And I want to talk through the high points that I just want to sharpen your attention to. So if we think about a traditional business plan, there are essentially 8 components to it. The executive summary, and you see the green star, so that's super important. And we're going to go through the green stars and all the other pieces but I want you to pay attention, especially to the stars. The executive summary is critical. I often write, even when I'm doing grant writing, when I'm doing business plan preps, the executive summary, you could eat off of it. It's so clean. It's razor sharp. Because I always think, okay, what if they don't want to read anything else? You can read my executive summary and you like to write a check. So you always write the executive summary last. It comes first, but you always write it last, because this is where you have perfect clarity about what it is that you want to do. You know, who is your market? You know, where are your price points? You know, what is your market? You have clarity at the end. So always write the executive summary last, even though it's the first thing that you present. The mission, you want to be razor sharp in your mission. So we're going to walk through some components that you can demonstrate why the mission of your business, your social enterprise is incredibly important. Third is typically your company summary, and this is just some kind of backstory, ownership information, history of the organization. Fourth, what products or services are you planning to offer? 5, the market analysis. And I have a star by this as well, because this is also a super critical part of the work. You want to be able to understand like the market segmentation. You want to understand like who is your target market. You want to understand like who's the competition and why do you think they would buy your stuff or, your service, or why do they need your service? And 6 is all around this strategy and implementation. And I started one section of that, this competitive edge. Like, why you? What makes what you do so important? And it could be because of the product or service. It could be the context, because context always matters. So the context of which you're delivering the product or service. So I want you to be thoughtful about that competitive edge. And I know that that the work is important, and even for those of you who are thinking about social enterprises, you still want to understand what your competitive advantage is. Even if you're playing very friendly and operating very collaboratively, why should I collaborate with you? What is your collaborative edge? Like, why should I partner with you as opposed to somebody else? So don't think of the competition in a negative context. Just think of it as demonstrating, what makes you so special? What makes your work so important? Why do I think you would have impact? So don't be put off by the language, but just understand the language and know how to operate within it. 7 would be the management team and the personnel plan. And 8, I put a star by. I want you to really understand your business, because when you know your numbers, you know your business. And if you know your numbers, you need to know your numbers, because if you know your numbers, you know your business. And you need to know your business if you're going to run a business effectively. So we're going to walk through some of the key components in the financial plan, just so that you have like a really critical understanding. And I have a little tool that I think will be helpful to sharpen your thinking about, understanding margins and being able to be impactful in that work in that way. Okay, so starting with the executive summary, again, the key elements of your business, and if it's a social business, like, why is it important? And again, as I said, it's at the beginning, but you do your executive summary at the end. It just, you've been in the work, you've leaned into the work, you're like really able to eloquently talk about the things that you're doing and why these things are important. So you want to save that sauce till, the end, even though, again, it's presented at the beginning of your business plan. The second piece, again, this mission component, it's really like why you exist. It needs to talk about like, like, why is this work important to you? And as you're thinking about mission, it's also important to understand the context of mission. So typically when we talk about mission, it's part of like this 3-piece of vision, mission, and values. So I just want to talk slightly about the difference so that you are clear. And so when we talk about the vision, the vision is what success looks like for your organization. And how do you see yourself, in the future? Or what impact do you have in the world if you have accomplished your mission? So the vision kind of is like your big picture piece. This is like, aspirational. This is like the future force. And again, you don't have to have a vision, but it's important to understand what it is as you think through what the context of your mission is. Mission. This is the reason why your organization exists. This is the visible piece. This is what your customers see, how you want to have this impact. So more on mission. If I think about mission, now I have a housing development background. So I have a lot of housing and real estate examples. So what are you looking at on the screen? Well, I don't have voices, but I'm going to tell you, it's some 2x4s. And just like in housing, 2x4s are a fundamental building block. You try to build a house, you need your 2x4s in order to build. A mission as well is a fundamental building block. It is the fundamental building block for your organization. So essentially, your mission is your 2x4. And that kind of helps you sharpen the thinking around it. So imagine it's to do something by doing something else for somebody. So if you think about your mission and you think about it as what is your 2x4, this will help you kind of sharpen the way that you think about your work, to do something by doing something else for someone. And you can look at mission statements and see it. You're like, okay, to do this, and you can see it all in it. So know what your 2x4 is. Know and be clear about what your mission, and you will be able to, share that mission with others. And then the third leg of that is values. And this is sort of like, shared belief systems or, all around organizational culture. And values are important. And sometimes investors want to see what the values of the organization are. But again, understanding vision, mission, and values, and being able to speak clearly, articulate your mission becomes important in your business plan. No matter if you're just doing a straight business or if you're doing a social business, the mission is always important. Okay. All right. So, Darnell, will you get questions, or do you want me to pause for questions, or are they able to post them or anything like that?
So we can do them toward the end if you want to do them as you
Okay.
go. What do you prefer?
I'm completely open. So if you have a
Do them
question, you
toward
can drop it in the
the
oh
chat.
toward the end. Okay, perfect. Put
Yeah.
it in the chat, and we'll do a Q. I'll make sure I save some time to do a Q&A session, and I'm pretty confident I can answer anything. All right. So the other piece I want you to pay close attention to is the market analysis. So I'm gonna watch my time to make sure I give you. Oh my God, it's 1:20 already. It's ridiculous. So market analysis. I want you to be able to dive into some existing secondary market sources. There's no need for you to reinvent the wheel. The data is there. If you understand where to look for the data, that's the win. So you want to have data to prove a point, but you don't have to do the research. It's people doing that all day. You just have to know where to look to get good information. So I'm going to give you a bunch of sources. So secondary data sources, incredibly powerful, incredibly impactful, and known to be ones that you can believe in. So of course, the census data. I cannot tell you how difficult it used to be to tap into census data. Now it is accessible, very useful, and will make your business plan sing, because you need to be able to talk about. And so I pulled up a screenshot here, and I just did a quick search on. Now, the thing about the census data, you have to tell it Atlanta City, comma, Georgia, because it's a whole bunch of crazy cities. Like it's, for example, it's a Cleveland, Mississippi, it's a Cleveland, Ohio, it's a Cleveland County. So you have to tell the census data what you want to find. So Atlanta City, Georgia, Ohio State, if you want the state of Ohio, or you want Georgia State, if you want the specifics on the state. You just pull up the census data and it can give you so much information. So on this very first page, I just put in Atlanta City, comma, Georgia, and I get a map, I get the population, I get the household income, I get the poverty rate, I get the employment rate. I can also look at people and population, race and ethnicity, health, education, employment, business and economy, income and poverty. It gives me great information. And when you're trying to demonstrate who's your market and what your market potential is, when you lean into resources like the census data, you become believed, because people can see, your investors see that you've done your work to understand your market and to understand the potential and possibilities of your market. So that becomes super important. And then I'm going to show you some other resources. And so you have the deck. So you have all of these links available to you. I'm just going to tell you where to find the goods. University sponsored resources. So University of Michigan, they do a bunch of stuff around childhood poverty. Harvard University does a lot of stuff around housing. This ICPSR, they have data. I mean, it's a treasure trove of data and reports, all done by university faculty who get paid to do all this research. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just need to go, and get what it is that you need. There's also a lot of think tanks and forums. Aspen Institute does a lot of great stuff around entrepreneurship. Policy Link does a lot of stuff around healthy food and food access and social justice. Brookings and the Urban Institutes around urban spaces. They have so many things. MDRC, they do a lot of research around returning citizens. It's just a tremendous amount of work. And now I realized with COVID-19 that my go-to spots were not giving me the most recent data that I needed, because anything older than 6 months, 3 months, I was like, I can't use this. It doesn't even matter. We're a whole different world than we were 6 months ago. So the management consulting research was razor sharp, hot off the press. So McKinsey and Company has wonderful research that, again, trusted. When you do a citation for McKinsey, they're like, okay, yeah, this person's done their work. IBM, A.T. Kearney, KPMG, Esri, here are great research websites that you can go to, get some information, and then build your argument off of the data. So that way your business is research informed and data driven. It's not just instinctually what you think will happen in the market. It's based upon demand. It's based upon the data. And that takes you from good to great. Okay, I want to walk through also just it might be helpful. So I put this in to just understand some of the components of the marketing plan, because we talk about marketing, but it's like we sometimes need to unpack it so that we have a really good understanding of what it all means. And so if you think about it, there are really three phases of the marketing plan. The planning phase, and this is where we have our mission and objectives, and that's critical, super critical, and that's, we talked about mission already. And the SWOT analysis, I'm sure that's a tool that you're very familiar with, but that's a critical part of marketing, and that's in the planning phase. Like, this is how we anticipate moving forward. The implementation phase, this is where we have our marketing strategy. This is where we want to identify our target markets. And this is where we want to be very familiar with the 4 Ps: product, place, price, and promotion. And then sometimes people call it the 5th P, people, which I think is super clever. And then, of course, just so you have it, the third phase of marketing is just evaluating if what you have proposed, or if your marketing mix strategy was impactful. And that's where the control phase is. But it's important to really, because when you say marketing, people just think, okay, yes. But when you break it down in just this simple piece, you can see the 3 different phases, and that helps you to think through what it is that you need to do in order to better support your business. So again, when you think about this piece, defining your mission, and also then connecting it to your goals, it makes it even more robust and powerful. So what that looks like is you can have the mission, as we talked about. Your 2x4 can be broad, but your goals can help sharpen the way that you move forward in implementing and actualizing that 2x4s. Your goal can help you determine your priorities, how you plan to move forward, how you're going to line up objectives. And your goals need to be ambitious, but not too outrageous, so that a potential investor won't think that you're just you're off the mark in any way. So I want to just remind you that we want you to have very sharp goals as you're working through this component of the business plan. So, for example, to assist people with disabilities. Okay, like, that's wonderful. I want that to happen. I'm not against that. But how do you know when you've done that? It needs to be sharper. And so, to enhance participation in society of people with disabilities, if we sharpen the language a little bit, it just kind of gets your attention better. Housing for senior citizens. That's a wonderful goal, but it's poorly written. To ensure that older Americans have safe, decent, affordable housing. Just sharpen it just a little bit, and it just has such a stronger impact in the work that you're doing. And then if you build on that, so you take poorly written goals and you have sharper goals, and then you align it with your objectives. This is where you have the best piece. And it just really wants you to see like how you plan on reaching those goals. So a SMART objective, it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, but it needs to be ambitious and agreed upon, relevant, and time bound. That's what SMART stands for. So what that means is, so to eliminate highway deaths. Now, if we were doing a SMART to reduce by 5% the highway accident rate in fiscal year 21. Now, it's specific because it is highway accidents, it's measurable, it's 5%, it's achievable. We didn't say we would eliminate them or 100%, 5%. Relevant, highway accident rate is a form of highway deaths. And time bound, you want to do it in fiscal year 21. So this way, as well as your investor will know when you've actually reached that point, or you can gauge in the year how close you are to reaching that specific goal. To reduce crime, that's a great objective. Crime reduced is wonderful, but it's poorly written. But if you smarten it up, reduce thefts by 5% over 12 months. It's very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. To provide faster service, again, great objective, great goal. But what if you smartened it up? Reduce waiting times by 15% in 1 year. So now you've smartened it up: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. And now anyone reviewing your business plan is like, oh yeah, this person has a clear understanding of what it is that they want to do and how they plan to get there. So you're building this robustness within your business plan. You're going from mission, and you're having well-written goals, and then you're attaching SMART objectives to them. So now you've gone and you're connecting your mission, your 2x4, why you exist, and a very clear pathway on how you plan to get there. And that's when you start having like a very, very strong business plan. So if we move here, we should see assist people with disabilities, enhance participation in society of people with disabilities, to create 50 new employment opportunities for people with disabilities by 2021. So you see, you went from having poorly written goals to well-written goals to SMART objectives attached to those goals. Housing for senior citizens, to ensure older Americans have safe, decent, and affordable housing, to build 25 units of affordable rental housing units for senior citizens in fiscal year 20. Boom. You went from kind of like having like a good idea to having a plan. And that's what the SMART objectives do for you. It gives you that clarity so you can articulate what it is that you want to do, so you can demonstrate why you need the resources in order to make these very specific things happen in this very specific timeline. Okay, so the next piece, the SWOT analysis. So again, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, incredibly useful tool. If I'm having a conversation with a person, I'm often like, I make a little cross on my notebook page, and as they're, you know, having a conversation and I get strength, I'm making a notation. You know, just observe something, think about your business, and or think about your idea, or think about a product, or think about a product partner, or think about a collaborator, you know, and, you know, think about what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Because if you can articulate what these things are, it gives you a much greater ability to build upon your strengths and opportunities and mitigate your weaknesses and threats. But if you never put pen to paper, you know, about what these things can be, then you have increased your ability to create a blind spot. So, but if you're thinking about these things, you have then increased your ability to have some coverage. Sometimes I created this worksheet, because sometimes it's easy to just work from something where I can put something in the boxes. And sometimes I need, if I'm working with a client, I might say, you know, they need a couple more boxes in order to put something in the boxes. So you can think about what your current strengths, weaknesses are, or future opportunities and threats. You can think about things that are internal or external. So again, here's just one more tool that you can use to sort of get your ideas on the page so that you can see your opportunities. You can make your future visible to yourself as well as to others. So, and then the implementation phase, I just want to talk a bit about some of the components in the implementation phase. So I want to talk a little bit about market segmentation. And you know who does this the best? Disney. Disney is not playing. They get that. They have had, listen, market segmentation, they want all of the money, no matter how old you are, where you are on the spectrum, they want it. So they got parks so that they can meet everybody's need. Think about Magic Kingdom. This is families with young children. Pleasure Island, this is couples and singles. Epcot Center, this is for older adults and families with older children. Like, they don't want you to not spend a nickel outside of their model. So I want you to also think about how can you better segment your market so you can better target your market and position yourself to reach your target. But you have to think about it, like, who are your target market and what are their needs and how can you meet those needs with your product? But if you just think, oh, I just got this super sweet product and I'm going to deliver, I'm saying you might have, but do yourself a favor and think about it with a little more detail and depth, and be strategic about it so you can ensure that you can reach the goals that you want, that you have set for yourself and your business. And understanding market segmentation, market targeting, and market positioning is one of the ways that you can make that happen. And I just wanted to speak to, just in case you haven't had the exposure to the 4 Ps, you know, understand your value. Your value is super, super, super important. And you need to think about like what this marketing mix is for your product as well, or service. You know, so the product is all around the value of creating. What is it that you are providing that is important? The price, this is how you capture value. What do you charge? You know, how much does it cost to produce what it is that you make? You know, what are your margins? Place, how do you deliver online versus brick and mortar, like a storefront? Because, you know, you need to be online because we don't know how long this pandemic gonna be. But you need to think about that. What is a both and strategy? But again, it's all about delivering value. Which strategy are you going to take to deliver value in the best way? And then promotion is really about communicate. How do you communicate the value? How do people know they're getting something good? How do people know what it is that you're creating, you know, and how to capture it and how you deliver it if you don't think through it? So understanding like the 4Ps really does give you some ability to understand this value proposition. And that's how I want you to think about that. All right, competitive strategy. So competitive strategy is just like a business level strategy that's going to help you sustain this competitive advantage, you know, over time. Again, don't be uncomfortable with the language. It's just demonstrating, you know, why you should be in the space and what you have to offer. So it's really just important for you to think about, like, what is it that makes your product, your business, your services special? And then let's talk that up. So competitive strategy is just essentially a way in order for you to sustain this advantage, because you know what happens, you create something or you do something and then others come into the market because they're like, man, Darnell is doing a good old thing with his, let me do that because he's making a win. So how do you kind of sustain your competitive advantage? You need to be very thoughtful even before you go into the market about, like, how do you still continue to exist even though competitors are going to come into the market? It's the way that the markets work. When people see that there's opportunity in the market, they want to enter. So you need to think about how you distinguish yourself and show that you have this competitive advantage or have a competitive strategy. You have to be strategic. It's not suggesting that you won't work collaboratively. I'm not suggesting that you you hold all your ideas close. I'm not suggesting that, because, you know, I come from the school of thought that, you know, a closed hand cannot get a gift, but you still need to think about, like, what makes you distinctive so that you can communicate what that distinction is. Okay, so I also wanted to just kind of touch in slightly in case this came across your, you know, if you came across this notion of a lean business plan, so that you would kind of have a clue what that is, because, you know, we want to make sure when people talking about stuff, we know what it means. So, so essentially, a lean business plan is just what it sounds. It's like lean, it's skinnier, it's less than a full business plan, but it essentially has 4 critical parts. Your strategy, you know, you just kind of note out some bullet points and, you know, how it is that you plan on doing what it is that you want to do for your business. It's about your tactics. These are very specific things, you know. What's your pricing? Think about the 4 Ps: market, service, financing, how you're going to make it happen. Milestones: when will you achieve these things? What are some of the indicators? You know, forecasting: what is the revenue? What are your revenue needs are going to be? You know, what is it that your cash flow needs are going to be? So this lean business plan allows you to, in a snapshot, provide this information, because it just shows that you have a real clarity about your work when you can deliver the information in a succinct way. And so here's an example from bplans.com where they talk about these 4 steps. And so it's sort of like this, they have these 1-page strategic plans. And so this is the sample of the lean business plan where you have these components that you're pulling together. And then I want to just kind of touch on slightly this social impact plan, because some of you, it will be important for you in your business plan to talk about social impact. And so again, think about, you know, what the social value that your business can create. And so maybe you need that to include that in your business plan. Who will benefit? You know, who will serve? How does your business create value? Back to the marketing piece. You know, what's your strategy to reach your intended beneficiaries? You know, what is like your infrastructure? What's in place? You know, how are you going to run your business effectively? And then sustainability. How does your business earn revenue? You know, when do you break even? And what's your strategy? Even if your strategy is like, we want to secure grants to fund, you know, this particular work, you need to know what it is, and you need to know what it costs so that you can get the money that you need in order to run your social business, you know. And again, think about like how you can have even more impact with less. So you could talk about being lean or having an impact or having influence or being such a force in the community that when people know that you're there, your organization is there, that they're going to come to you in order to receive those services. So that piece becomes important. And then I want to talk about this piece. This is super, super important. And it goes to my final piece about understanding your numbers. So one of the super great tools that you can use is to think about these three things: MBV, margin. This is like each sale. How much do you profit from each sale? Burn. How much does it cost? What are your fixed costs? And then volume. What type of volume do you need to break even, to be profitable? What? So if you think about your MBV, like, again, it goes back to when you know your numbers, you know your business. So let's talk about margin. So it's all about your pricing strategy. It's understanding your materials and labor expenses. It's understanding who your vendors are, what discounts are possible for you. It's understanding how to cost out your subcontractors. Burn. This is like, your salaries. This is, again, you think about some of the additional costs that you need in order to run your business: marketing, advertising, equipment, fees, insurance, accounting. Like, these are the things that you need. Understanding the burn, again, helps you know the volume that you need to have in order to be effective and impactful and to break even and to be profitable in your work. And the volume speaks to, how many buyers, what are the profiles, what are the features, what's your competitive positioning here, what is your sales strategy, what's your marketing strategy and marketing impact. The volume speaks to that. And this feels like but I'm going to show you what it means in like real language right here. So here we are. Let's just say, for pretend, you was going to be delivering a spa service. So maybe you're going to charge $30 an hour for this service. This is like community trying to reduce the stress of women who've been working 18 jobs in order to make it go. So, you need to know that what is the direct cost in labor? Maybe that's $14. The margin then is $16. And your burn is $5,000. So your burn, essentially, what is your rent? What is your, all of these expenses that it needs in order for you to run your business. So if you have this information, that $5,000 a month is your burn. This is your expenses in order to run your business. And for the year, then you need to generate at least $60,000 in order to break even. So essentially, to make that calculation, so in the calculation category, you see 5,000 times 12, that gives you the $60,000 to know how much your expenses are. So it's just 5,000 a month times 12 months. It gives you what you need for the year. So if we're thinking about sales in the year, you think about the margin. So $60,000 a year over your margin. So you see your margin here. So 30 is your pricing, 14 is your cost, so $16 is your margin. That's the profit, essentially, that you make off of every sale of your unit of your product or service. So if you know what you need to have for your annual sales. So here, your required volume is 60,000. Your $16 in margin means that you need to have 3,750 units sold every year in order to reach your required volume. So if you know 3,750 and divide that by 12, you know that you have to have 313 per month. If you take that 3,750 divided by 52, you need to have 72 sales of that product or service a week. If you divide it by 365, you need 10 sales a day in order to make it go. And then if you divide that in half, you need to make 5 sales before you go to lunch so that you can be on track in order to, meet what you need for your business. Okay, let's give you another example. Cupcakes. Let's just say you sell some cupcakes and you sell them for $4. You know that the cost is $1. This is your direct cost of labor and materials. So your margin on that $4 cupcake is $3. And let's just say your expenses, your burn is $8,000 a month. So again, 8,000 times 12 gives you the $96,000 a year that you need to generate. Again, that means when you divide that, it gives you 32,000. So this is what your annual sales need to be. This is your monthly, 615 a week, 88 a day, 44 before you go to lunch. So again, it's just a way to think about your work. If you're doing training or coaching, maybe you charge $150 per session, $80 in direct labor and materials. The margin is 70. Your burn, again, so you're covering your direct costs, but there's all these other things you got to pay, and that is your burn. So you think about that, 1,200 times 12, 14,400 a year. And now you think about it from your margin, 200 annual sales. So you need to sell 206 training or coaching sessions annually. That's 17 a month. That's 4 a week. So again, if you could just understand your margin, burn, and volume, that will be very helpful in thinking through how you can effectively run your business. So in the toolbox also, just know I put into the Blackboard business plan guidelines, another kind of hard copy, some useful websites. I put in the lean business plan example. And I also put in this margin, burn, and volume. I put in an Excel worksheet into your Blackboard. So you could just put in, what is your burn, and it will do the calculations for you. You can put in that, and you can put in what your margin is. And again, it just helps train you, because we know that you're doing the work because you love the work, but you need to really understand your numbers so you can be impactful in your work. So, all right, I tried to save some time to take questions, and so there you have it.
Before I offer my thanks to Dr. Madden, I want to invite all 20 or so participants just to breathe in, allow the brilliance to settle. A lot has been shared, and I know for some, it is hard for us to make the jump from our denominational or religious way of seeing the way in which we do work. We don't often think about business. Business seems secular, and then church or faith-rooted stuff seems non-secular. I want us to imagine what Bishop Flunder shared earlier today, that all of this work is sacred, right? Yeah, it may be a different skill set, a different language, makes you feel uncomfortable thinking about things from this point of view because it's not what you're accustomed to. But if we are to do sustainable work that has an impact, we need to expand the ways in which we understand business. It's not a bad word. It's not a bad word at all, especially if you're doing great work, right? We talked about earlier, know your why. Some of you are doing some very important work, and we want that work to be able to be around in sustainable, long-term ways, and not just passion projects that often fizzle out because there's not a plan in place. So I want to just name that, breathe. It's going to be okay. You can come back to this recording and come back to all the things that have been listed in the resource bank. My deep thanks to Dr. Madden for sharing her brilliance with us, and look forward to continue work together with our CENT 2020, CENT 2021 cohort. And of course, if you haven't already, the link to apply, I will put in the chat for you all to apply if you want to be a part of a 12-month process to further cultivate your plan, your idea around a social enterprise. We have a question in the chat that was named earlier by Rachel. How would you advise that we make smart attitudinal behavior changes of a target audience if this is our goal? This can be tough to quantify. I can do pre or post surveys, for example, but won't necessarily have an indicator to prove a negative or attitudinal change for funders.
I totally get that question. And it is, it is truly a research piece where we say, well, how can we show that we've caused this particular change, or that we are capturing the change? And what I'm going to suggest to you is 2 tools. One, think about the SMART objectives as a way to direct your work. Don't think about the SMART objective as a way to essentially, gauge your target audience change. I'm going to direct you to a different tool. And for that tool, I think that a logic model becomes like the powerful tool that you can think about in measuring what you're trying to call out here is your impact. And so when you think about the logic model, you know, it's all about like, here are the, you know, the resources that we need. And if we had these resources, we could do these very specific activities. And if we had these activities, we could have these outputs. And that's the numbers of things. And this is typically where we have stopped when it comes to measurement. And when you have these outputs, you can have these specific outcomes. And that's the increase or decrease or percentage change. And that's the things that we're really seeking to measure now, these outcomes. And if you have these outcomes, the logic model finishes up to say you'll have this specific impact. But I'm going to say that you're thinking about this work through the lens of a grant or a nonprofit funder. What you also need to think about in your business plan is really about, like, you know, how is it, what do you propose to provide? What good or service are you proposing to provide, and how much is that good and service? And then what changes as a result of that? So in some of your business plan, you don't need to capture the outcome level of your work. You need to just be able to show what you propose to do so that you can secure the resources that you need in order to make that happen. And then use the logic model to kind of guide both your numbers of things, your increase or decrease, the outcomes, and then also look at what impact that you could have. And this also speaks to going to these data sources and this research. So you could say, like, for example, and then I'll try and get to the next question. For example, if you were trying to provide a service for you know, doing some training so that people can get into better jobs. And the data says that if you can provide stipends for participants, especially under-resourced participants, while they're doing the training, you've increased the likelihood that they complete the training. And that makes perfect sense intuitively, because they don't have jobs. And if they need the money right now, if there was some stipend provided, then they would stay in the program, and then they could complete the training so that they can get the better job. The data will already tell you that that's what it takes. So you just cite the data to talk about the impact and the outcomes. You don't have to collect that data. It's already there. You just have to find the right resource that supports the work that you're trying to do. That's where you spend your time.
Thank you, Dr. Madden. So we have another question from, I believe it's Lauren. Is the lean business plan meant to be an alternative to the full plan, or one to use for other contexts, in other contexts?
Thank you for that question. And it's really the requester that will have. I just want you to be able to know if someone says, okay, just give me a lean business plan, you're like, no problem. But typically, so it typically comes from the requester. They will ask for the full business plan, or they'll ask for the lean business plan. But you can build the lean business plan from the full business plan. It's just you're cherry picking the key components of that information to present. It's just sort of like a very specific executive summary.
Thank you. One question, is Dr. Madden available during the cohort process or as a private consultant? Well, she has a boutique, as she mentioned, but as relates to boutique consulting, but as relates to her work with the cohort, we're still in conversations about how we can bring her in to be a part of the cohort. It is our hope that she's available and willing to be a part of our 12-month cohort in some way. But as for now, she'll be available via Blackboard for a couple of days if you have some questions you want to ask. I think she also offered you her email. It's been my experience that she's very approachable and very supportive. So you can reach out to her those ways.
And do reach out. In fact, I run strategic planning courses where I have student groups that can help, and I always supervise that work. So I welcome you reaching out.
To Q-Sign's question, we will email and provide access to all materials on Blackboard, and this will be recorded and shared out as well. We have a question from And Nasri Winston, what are some warnings in this process that you can foresee for us to avoid during this building process? What are some warnings?
Listen, that like the passion is incredibly powerful. Passion is so important. But help the passion by understanding your business. It only makes it doubly strong if you have passion and you have your ducks in a row. You know, you will help yourself when you understand your business. It's not enough anymore to just say you love what you're doing, you know, and that, you know, you're going to have an impact. You have to know and understand strategy. You have to be comfortable with these numbers. You have to, you know, even if part of your social mission is to ask for, you know, grants or to go after some investment, you know, from the foundation sector, and those could be PRIs. So sometimes foundations will invest in social businesses through 0% interest loans, but you still have to know your numbers. People want to know, like, you know, what is your impact? What is your social return on investment, as well as your actual return on investment? So do yourself a favor and like skill yourselves, not only to be driven by your passion, but to also understand your business. And then there's a question too about the lean business plan. You know, you may just need your lean business plan. So you don't have to do the full business plan. You could start with the lean business plan and just say, these are some of the pieces that are super important to me that I've thought through. And then you might want to build your deeper business plan off of the lean plan. So there's no, you know, one way. It's what works for you.
Two more questions I think we have time for. They're definitely in the heart of social entrepreneurship. So this is from Lorraine again. Something donation based. You'll need to calculate how many donations needed per year and perhaps an average donation. That was a question.
Mm-hmm.
For donation based, yeah.
I think that and this happens all the time, especially for my nonprofit clients, is that they work so hard to get these donations and they never quantify what those donations are. And not doing that does yourself a huge disservice. Let's just take, for simplicity's sake, that your budget is, you know, $100, and you get $25 of that donated. And so always the focus is, how am I going to raise the $75, because that's real hard cash. But you need to always say that, you know, yeah, and so you're out. I need to raise the $75. Can you give me $25? Can you give me $50? But if you say my budget is $100 and I've already raised 25% of it, it doesn't matter if it's donated. It just shows that you got some skin in the game. And so you need to keep track of those donated things, just so you can demonstrate, I done made it 25% all by myself. I just need you to come on and join a winning team with this other 75%. So not calculating that contributed and donated goods, services, time, talent, that's doing you a disservice. It's not accurately representing, and this is a cost accounting question, it's not accurately representing what it is that you do. You're shortchanging yourself. So it takes some work, but it's not impossible. You just have to train your mind to constantly capture all the things that you're getting donated to your work. That's your effort. That's your impact. You know, you're getting people to contribute to you. You need to capture that as part of your value.
And to close, that question is, can you say more about social impact planning? We have about 2 minutes. Can you say more about social impact planning?
Mm-hmm. And so it is, and again, I'm going to lean back to the logic model, especially on this social piece, and your ability to, again, think about not only your return on investment, but your social return on investment. So in your business plan, if it's a social enterprise, like why is it that you believe that your good or service can make a difference? And so you need to be able to articulate what that impact is and how you anticipate on making that impact, and why this cannot be offered or is being offered in this way. So if a typical nonprofit can provide this service, like why your organization? So if you need to demonstrate like what makes you distinctive and what type of impact that you plan to have, you need to add that into the work, but still understanding what it costs. Even if somebody donates it to you or gives you a grant for it, or you win a grant for it. I've written lots and lots of grants to cover businesses, but I still need to know what it costs so that we can do the financials appropriately. So you need to be able to also illustrate, like, what is that social impact, what it costs, and what can be gained from it. And using the data to say, if you can have if you can have these things, this is the impact that you can have.
There she goes. We thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insight, your wisdom, your expertise. Again, please utilize Blackboard, not only to engage the content that she's uploaded, but also any questions, or you can email her directly. Also plugging again Brain Date. If something is emerging that you want to talk to among your peers who are joining us, use Blackboard to create a Brain Date, which basically says, hey, I want to talk about this. Anybody interested? And you all can set up an organic way of meeting, whether through Zoom, Google Hangouts, to talk about that further, because there's also some wisdom in the room that we want to make sure that you're tapping into. This is a moment to connect and collaborate. So again, thank you all. This has been a great seminar.
Good luck to you all.